So welcome to our practice today. We will work on surrender. So that does by no chance mean that we're doing nothing. We will be moving today as usual. You might like to either prepare a blanket for yourself or maybe have a block if that's something that's existing in your household. Not essential, we won't need it for anything else, but maybe a seated position, which takes me to the point of actually sitting down. So I will use my block and place my bottom onto the block. This is one variation of sitting. So you could have here an easy pose. If that posture is the one where you can most easy sit upright in your spine, then please choose this one. If you find that's maybe not yours, you could use your block between your feet back there and sit with a very deep flexion in the knees. So your choice. If you choose the position that I am in currently, you might like to move that towards the end of your mat. So while my mat might be squared, yours could be pointed towards the screen. Having said that, we will allow us to close the eyes, but only if that doesn't make you uncomfortable. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable to shut out the outside world. And in that case, I would ask you to steady your gaze instead somewhere where it's very comfortable for you to sit. And then allowing your sitting bones to just drop down towards your sitting support. Encouraging your shoulders a little bit back as you let them slide down and soften. So from this place, simply acknowledging where you're at this morning or whatever time of the day this practice is happening for you. Acknowledging that you bring certain things to your practice. If you feel you would like to offer your practice in the sense of a surrender, you could choose to place your hands into two bowls with the palms of the hands facing up like that. The hands will be open without an interlace, and we're touching the side of the little fingers together and then snugging the thumb in with the index fingers and just holding. This would now look like a big bowl in front of our hands. If you like, you could take your gaze into this bowl for this time, or looking into it with eyes closed, both is fine. This bowl is quite precious, and you might place into it what you are surrendering today. There is, of course, that overall sense of surrender to the universe, the divine. But sometimes it is more of a lesson of acceptance when we surrender to something that we can't change. So whatever your thing is that you are surrendering to, keep that within the palms of your hands. Take a breath in and lift it up. And then draw the palms of your hands together and bring them down in Anjali Mudra in front of your chest. Letting your thumbs maybe gently touch towards the sternum. There is a chance for you to participate in 3 universal sounds of Om or listen to them. We'll begin by breathing in together for the first Om. this place of first connection to the universe. We'll continue with alternate nostril breathing. If you're familiar with it, you might even keep your eyes closed. You could lift your right hand up towards the nose and use your thumb and your ring finger on either side of it. You might then place the index and middle finger between the third eye or fold them into the palm of the hand. With your spine upright, and that is including the neck, you might like to place your left hand underneath the right elbow to support yourself. Breathing in and out through both nostrils to notice, is there anyone blocked? Is that free flowing? If you notice it's not possible to breathe through the nostrils very easily, you may visualize this practice. If you are participating, please close your right nostril and inhale deeply through your left. Then open the right nostril, close the left, and exhale the right nostril. Inhaling through the right nostril. Open your left, close the right, and breathe out your left nostril. That was our first cycle. Going again. Inhaling left. Exhaling right. Inhaling right. Exhaling left. I'll leave it up to you to find your own pace now as you alternate inhaling through one side and exhaling through the other. As you alternate your nostrils, keep the breath flowing smoothly and maybe beginning to notice that there is a switch over point for your breath. As we work with both sides, the left and the right, Ida and Pingala Nadi, as well as stimulating our major energy channel, Sushumna Nadi, in the center of the spine. This practice of Nadi Shodhana, or alternate nostril breathing, could also bring you to harmony between left and right side. Please allow this technique to continue for another 2 rounds. And resting down your hands and pausing once completed to acknowledge any changes. You may or may not feel the changes created by breathing practices, but we can trust that they are there. If you are currently seated, like myself, in an easy pose, please remove yourself from that seated position and come towards the end of your mat to either sit or stand upon your heels. And we will take a deep breath in from here, lifting the hips up and reaching our arms up, maybe even lifting the gaze towards the ceiling. And on your next out breath, landing your hands down to arrive on all fours. But I'll slide my hands a lot forward today, then roll up through your spine and start to lean this into a kneeling plank. If this is enough for you, you may stay here, or you could roll over your knees, let your hips sink down and open your chest, breathing in. With the out breath, start to round your back again. Hands will slide along the mat as you sit your buttocks to your heels for an extended child's pose. We'll repeat that. So while you inhale, round your spine forward, let the hands slide forward. You might roll over your knees, even lower your hips and open your chest. And then on the out breath, reverse it all in any direction, rolling through the spine and allowing yourself to use some of the core muscles. So let's go again. On the inhale, slide forward, maybe a back bend. On the out breath, rolling back, extended child's pose. Take this for another round. On the inhale, roll your spine forward, maybe a plank, maybe a back bend. And an exhale to round the spine again towards the heel. With your next inhalation now coming up onto all fours and setting yourself up purposefully so the knees are aligned underneath the hips. Your hands will spread out, they're about shoulder distance apart, and you might like them just like myself, the wrists a tiny bit forward from underneath the shoulder to allow more space for your spine to go into neutral. With your next inhalation, lifting your right leg up. Start to extend forward into the crown of the head and back to your toes. With the exhalation, draw your knee and nose together underneath and round your spine. On the inhale, extending your leg and the spine. And with the out breath, curling the knee back in towards the nose. Doing another 3 here, just extending the spine and rounding, using your balancing skills and inviting that movement more deeply into the spine. In your last round, keep your knee forward and you might help or land your foot in between your hands. It's always the option of assisting the foot or wiggling it forward if need be. Once your foot is to the front, come onto your fingertips and find some length in your spine. Start to ground a bit more through the back foot. And here's your option of lifting the arms on the inhale. And you might let your hands come down to the chest on the exhale. As you come to stand here, trying to align the pelvis to parallel, the hip to sit over the knee, and yet there is a steadiness in the stance of your kneeling lunge. Inhaling, reaching your arms back up. Exhaling, landing your hands down to the mat. And then bringing your right knee back down onto the ground. Finding once more an all-four stance. On your next inhale, let your left leg extend back, trying to reach into the toes and forward to the crown of the head. On the exhalation, again bring nose and knee together underneath, rounding the back. On the inhale, extending leg and spine. A breath out to draw the knee in towards the chest. Go for another 3 rounds. Think of extending through the spine and the back leg on your in-breath and rounding deeply on the out-breath. 2 more to go. And with your last one again, keep the knee into the chest. Either help or step the foot between the hands. Wiggling it there is another option. Once you've got your foot in place, you might like to lift up onto your fingertips, extending through the spine and beginning to ground through the top of your back foot. Next option is to raise the arms on the in-breath and maybe touching hands to heart on the out-breath. Take a moment once again to align the hips and center the hip over the knee joint. Finding that sense of stability, maybe groundedness through the back leg. On the next inhalation, lifting the arms again. A breath out to place the hands down onto the mat. Tucking your back toes under this time and raising the knee away from the mat, only to step your foot to the front and let your body soften forward. High blood pressure, any other issues, you might keep your head up halfway. If you're hanging here, let your next out breath guide your spine to roll up into a standing position, while you will stay standing towards the front of the mat. Give your shoulders a little shrug and open the palms of your hands to face forward. So if you are facing short edge of the mat, allow the feet to be at least about hip distance apart. The alignment of the feet is not so important at this point. Softening the knees and then allowing your hands to just float around the hips for soft twisting. If that feels good, you might raise the sole of the foot and pivot over the heel, releasing some of the twist in the knees. And with that, you might like to wrap your arms around your waistline instead of your hips. Or even take one hand up to the opposite shoulder and maybe tapping the back of the other hand against the mid-back. And then continue, but let your arms come lower. Let them almost swing out naturally. And there might be a point where your feet remain grounded again and the arms becoming loose. Your stance might have widened a bit, and that's perfect. If it's quite narrow, please step it almost to mat distance there at the short end. Keeping your knees a little bit soft, take a breath in and reach your left arm up to the ceiling. On your out breath, come into a first side bend. On the inhale, lifting the arm again. On the out breath, release your arm by your side. Next, inhale, lifting the right arm. On the out breath again, come into a side bend. Inhaling to rise and exhaling to release. We'll keep side bending, but now lifting both arms on the in-breath. Letting the right arm fall as you come to a side bend, maybe looking down this time. On the inhale, both arms are back up. And on your out-breath, the left arm folds and another side bend. Inhaling, lifting the arms up. We'll repeat, let the right arm fall, but now stay here for a breath or two, creating a bit more length through the left side of the body. I'm a big fan here of bouncing a little bit in and out of the side stretch to stimulate the fascia to lengthen as well as the muscles. And then let both knees bend and roll your arm, shoulder in, be soft in your spine, use your feet, roll back up, give the shoulders another shrug to a standing position. Inhaling, lifting both arms again. On the out breath, the left arm folds and into another side bend. We're holding here again. Your gaze might be downwards, so the neck is free of strain, and you might bounce again a little bit in and out of the shape, stimulating our connective tissue to move and slide and glide. Then let your knees bend more and roll again your upper body in, and then rounding your spine up with a shoulder shrug to arrive once more at the front side of the mat. I will change to that side in a moment, as I would ask you all to step the feet to a maximum of hip distance now. We're preparing for a flow. The outer edges of the feet might be parallel. Whether that's hip distance or your big toes are together, I will leave that one up to you. With the next inhale, lifting both arms again. And letting the right arm fall as you come back into a side bend. Now bend your knees deeply, and as you roll your arm and shoulder, roll the whole body forward and down now into Uttanasana or forward fold. With an inhale, let your hands slide up, maybe the shins, and extending your spine forward, finding your half lift position. On the out breath now, stepping your right foot back into a lunge. You're very welcome to use your knee on the mat as a support. If you don't, collapse your whole body, including legs and upper body as you inhale. And then breathe out and curl up your spine. On the inhalation, lifting the arms up for a high lunge. And when breathing out, bring the hands down in front of the chest. If the lunges don't suit your body, you can always ground your back heel towards the mat, keeping a light bend in the back knee if the heel is off the floor. Noticing if you feel that your balance is here in the pelvic area, and if it isn't, it's the front side of the hip that we gently realign backwards to the other. Again, a practice of stability. As you next inhale, let your arms reach back up, maybe separating the hands. And with an out breath, landing your hands down either side of your front foot. You can choose now to place the back knee down to the mat or step the front foot directly back to downward facing dog. So your alternative is always knees down, all fours. Same range of movement almost than it is in a downward dog. So don't feel pressured to practice a certain way, making your choices now. It might be nice to move this down dog, and that could be done by just moving into the legs and allowing a bit of a swing into the hips. Also optional will be a flow. So if you would like to try, breathe in, roll the spine forward, come into a plank. My personal preference, kneeling plank, a little bit more control. As we pause in the plank, no matter knees on or off the mat, the tailbone is drawing back towards your heels. On your out breath, keep your elbows close and lower down onto the mat. Grounding again through the tops of the feet. And with the inhalation, the head and the chest are coming up for a cobra. Hands can ground, float, and arms may extend. On the out breath, release the shape. On the inhale, come to all fours. You might like to stay here or tuck the toes under, and exhaling for a downward facing dog. Again, please feel free to move this down dog. If you find you're ready for steadiness, softening your knees and allowing your tailbone to stretch high up and back. If the knees soft, you might reach that beautiful natural curve of the spine that is a little bit more effortless. As you next inhale, lifting your right leg up. On the out breath, bring your right knee into the chest and hold it there. Then land literally your right knee down in the middle of the mat. And swing your left leg out to the side. So the left leg steps out at about hip distance apart. I will simply change my view so you can see me better. On the out breath, roll up through your spine. Come to stand with your hip over your knee. And then take an inhale to lift both arms again. On your out breath now, let the left arm fall and go again into a side bend. This is gate pose or parikasana. Allow yourself a few breaths, just bending sideways and letting the hand just gently slide down, a very soft touch rather than a leaning towards. On the out breath now, rolling your arm and shoulder down to the mat, placing your right hand flat onto the mat in front and take the left hand into the side of the waist. Now I will have to change sides here again to make that happen. You can then choose to slide your left foot back onto the mat and begin to roll your left shoulder open. There is an option to extend your left arm up. And if you even choose to look up, have a light chin tuck here. This is a kneeling side plank. Those of you wanting to practice on the strengthening side, you might lift your lower knee away from the ground. Place the outer edge of that foot behind or in front of the other. and have a full plank position. Then let your upper arms swing down, come onto your knees and sit your buttocks back to the heels, same as we've practiced before. On the inhale, let the hands slide forward. You might like to roll over the knees, maybe even lower the hips and open the chest. Then tuck your toes under as you next exhale and move buttocks back to your heels. You can choose to take a pause here or pause in a downward facing dog. And you might like to take a slow, deep breath in, feeling belly and ribs expanding. You might even hold the breath just for a moment within your body, and then breathe out slowly. On the next inhale, let your right leg lift up. On your breath out, bring the right knee to the right elbow. Again, there's the option of helping the foot, but from there, landing your foot to the outer edge of the hand. Grounding your left heel to the floor. And you might like to leave your right arm extended or place the forearm onto the right thigh. For a side angle pose, breathe in and extend your left arm up. So either both arms are long in this shape or the lower forearm is resting to the middle of the thigh. Try and find some groundedness to the outer edge of your back foot. Arm doesn't want to extend. There's always the hand into the side of the waist. Make a use of your front foot as you push into it and take a breath in, lifting both arms out, shoulder height, a warrior two. As you turn your gaze over your front hand fingertips, there could be a squeezing coming in of the feet moving in towards each other, so your foundation becomes really strong. And yet your shoulders are a bit soft and your gaze is steady. With your next in-breath, bend your back knee, maybe lifting the heel, and your arms could reach back to a high lunge. For the out-breath, bring your hands down onto the mat, and then bring the foot forward to a standing forward bend. Let your body hang down again. Out-breath, rolling up through your spine. Inhaling, lifting both arms, extending the body. Left arm falls on the out-breath for a side bend. Gaze might be looking downwards here. And then a deep bend to your knees as you let arm and shoulder roll forward and end in a forward bend. On an in-breath, lengthen the spine again forward, half lift position. For your out-breath, let your left foot step back into a lunge. You like more stability, please bring the left knee to the mat. We're collapsing the lunge on the inhale, the legs, the upper body. And then an out-breath, taking time to round up through your spine. On the inhale, lifting the arms again, high lunge. And the out-breath to bring the hands down to heart center. We'll hold here, same as on the other side. If there's too much wobble, you can ground the back heel to the mat. If the heel's off the floor, keep a light bend in the knee. Think about aligning the pelvis. So it could be now the right side of the hip that needs that little nudge backwards. Nice and tall spine and a steady gaze for this lunge. Inhaling. Let your arms extend again. Exhaling, bring your hands down to the mat. Stepping your foot back to fours or downward dog. We'll keep this flow simple, otherwise you could also rest On the in-breath, rolling spine forward. Maybe knees are grounding down. Tail goes to heels. And breath out to lower again. And you might also stay off the mat and transition into an up dog instead of a cobra as you take a breath in. On the exhale, could you start your transition back to your all fours or down the dog? Taking another breath. After these flows, we've changed our breaths. Not quite on purpose, but that happens. Let your out breaths find the balance as you lengthen it gently. With your next breath in, lifting your left leg up. On the out breath, bring the knee into the chest and then land literally the knee down to the middle of the mat. Let your right leg swing out to your side and ground down through the foot. Toes are pointing forward. On the exhalation, rolling up through the spine again, your hip, your knee in alignment. And a breath in to lift both arms. It is now the right arm that folds as we lean towards the extended leg. Palm of the hand on the upper side might face down, but more important, the hand against the leg is very soft and gentle. Only a tiny little touch here. To release that, let your arm and shoulder roll back in. I will turn myself around. It is the left hand that is grounded and the right hand can slide into the side of the waist. You might take the foot from your side and slide it back to a line over the mat. Then maybe rolling your right shoulder open, turning towards the side plank. And an option here to extend the right arm up. If you were experimenting with a lift of the knee off the ground, you may extend again your lower leg and rest your left foot on its outer edge, either in front or behind your right foot, keeping your hips lifting up. And so might the corners of your mouth. Just take a big lift as you inhale. And then with the exhale, swing the hand back down, landing on your knees, rolling the spine back so the hips are sinking to the heels. And an option only as you inhale, let hands slide forward, roll over your knees. Maybe the hips are lowering and the heart is lifting. And on the out breath, roll the spine back, tuck the toes under, buttocks to the heels, variation of a child's pose. And you could choose from there to come to all fours or a downward facing dog again. Next inhalation, let your left leg lift. On the out breath, bring your left knee to your left elbow and aim to land or help your foot to the outside of your left hand. Then ground your right heel to the mat. You may leave your left arm long towards the ground or place the forearm to the thigh. On an in-breath, let the right arm extend to the ceiling. Too much, place the hand into the side of the waist instead. Finding your side angle pose stance. If your forearm is now resting towards your knee, pull it a little bit back and let the forearm rest heavily, assisting you to extend through the spine. Inhaling and pressing down into the front foot to raise up. Arms extending shoulder height, gaze over front and fingertips. The only change, the stance is exactly the same, is that you might draw your feet in towards each other and feel that more stability comes up from the ground, assisting you with the necessary self-esteem and confidence to surrender. On the next inhale, raise your back heel off the ground and lift your arms. A breath out to release the hands down and step the foot forward and simply bow down. An out breath to roll up through the spine. An in breath to lift the shoulders. An exhale to shrug the arms down, turning the palms of the hands forward again. Finding a tall, solid stance. You might like to allow the outer edges of the feet to be parallel at hip distance or with big toes together. You might like to ground through the center of the heel, either side of the ball of the foot, yet keep your knees out of the lock. And get a sense of your pelvis, as you might visualize that as a ball of energy, being right in balance. Sometimes when we lock our knees, the pelvis tilts and you could spill the energy to the front. Sometimes when we tuck the tail under, the energy spills out the back. So you aim to find a middle way, soften into that area, maybe visualizing your source of energy sitting down there. We will practice a balance. So for your next inhalation, lifting your right knee, maybe your arms are lifting. You can always leave a big toe on the ground and then step your foot gently behind and across and let your arms open out into a light squat. You can stay at any stage of this balance, as you might shift your weight to your back heel and let your front leg slide over the back leg, like a seated position. You might then bring your left arm underneath the right and give yourself a loving hug across the shoulders. Or you might take the palms to touch. Let your shoulders soften down, but leave your elbows a little lifted. The big toe of your left foot might assist your balance, but you could also lift it off the ground and start to squeeze your legs together. Find a steady gaze point. With your next inhalation, let your arms unwind, your left knee lift, and step both feet down to the front of the mat, turning the palms forward again and finding the steady stance of a mountain pose. Taking a breath in that expands from the belly into the ribs, up to your collarbones, and a breath out from the belly to the ribs, to the collarbone. Maybe there's another breath in you, just like that. Remind yourself of the ball of energy. Let your legs soften a little, your pelvis be in balance. And with your next inhalation, lifting the left knee, arms might come up. Big toe could stay on the ground. And stepping the foot behind, the arms are moving out towards the sides. As you sink in towards your back heel, let the front leg cross over. And then let your right arm cross under the left. Again, there's the option of giving yourself a loving hug or to touch the palms together, letting shoulders soften down. Big toe of the right foot might stay on the ground or off the ground, and then there's a hug of the legs towards each other. Same might occur in your arms, as once more you steady the gaze. to release. Let your arms lift as you breathe in. Bring your front knee up or top knee and land again, both feet front of the mat. Palms are turning forward. Once again, mountain pose, softness of the knees, the energy sitting within the pelvic bowl. For your next inhalation, lifting your arms back up. On your out breath, soften your knees and fold your spine straight down towards the mat. On the inhale, come to a half lift. With the exhale, step both knees down onto the ground. You can choose to tuck your toes under or keep the tops of the feet down flat. On the exhalation, rounding up through your spine, coming again to stand on the knees. With the inhalation, extending the arms up towards the ceiling. You might even try and lift your heart a bit. With your out breath, circle the arms behind your back and place your hands flat into the lower back. Your fingers will be pointing down towards the floor. Give a little squeeze between the shoulder blades and the elbows and start to lift from your sternum. If your neck feels sore, hold like this. If the neck's okay, bring your chin forward and then carefully guiding your head backwards. There's a subtle squeeze in the buttocks and a strong sense of being lifted from the sternum. Couple of deeper breaths over the front body. And when you breathe out next, bending the hips. The head will naturally follow as you sit the buttocks to the heels. As the head comes forward, let the hands come to the front as well. And you might like to stack fists to rest your forehead upon. If you were observing me, I started already on the way down, swaying a little bit from side to side. I find that quite beneficial to loosen up any tightness from the back bend. And you might try and find your own organic movement that assists you to let your body be at ease. From this position now, place your hands down at about shoulder distance and right in front of your knees. Anyone that doesn't want to bring the head down all the way could snap the elbows into the side and extend the spine forward. That's perfectly fine to do, and there's barely any pressure coming into the head. If you don't mind that pressure, tuck the chin in towards the chest and place the head down in front of your knees. You can then take a breath in and roll the hips up so you're coming to the crown of the head. Ideally, you now have your elbows resting over your wrists. Your hands are grounded down to the floor, so is the top of the head. There is a bit of pressure there, so you might like that or you might not, and anytime can you sit to the heels. Give the shoulders a little lift up into the shoulder socket if you're holding here. This is sufficient and a variation of either a tripod or a rabbit pose. On your next exhalation, let your buttocks gently sit back towards the heels. You might like to extend your arms now alongside the body, giving shoulders and arms a break and broadening through your back. On the next exhalation, rolling up through the spine to come to sit. Don't worry, your knees are sore. We'll bring the legs out in front straight away. So turning myself, but you can stay facing the front, opening the legs out wide. Now I'm already shuffling. That's a sign I'm not 100% comfortable. You could choose to pop a blanket underneath the buttocks. You might choose to roll up the mat. And if that is all too low, you may also sit on the block with both legs extended out if that suits you. Be mindful, there's a tendency here of the knees to pop through. Keep a micro bend in the knees if you're sitting higher. More important here is a flexion of both feet. So leaving your toes turned upwards. Bring the backs of your hands against your inner thighs and drop all the way onto your sitting bones. Acknowledge if you have been one of us who started already slightly leaning forward. Notice that you're perfectly fine in the place that you are right now. And even if you're not going anywhere, this is perfect. If you feel you want to add some movement, let one hand slide down the inside of the leg and gently massage again as you slide up. Repeating that as you start to move side to side, deliberately maybe stimulating the inside of the legs. And with that movement, there's an opportunity to also lean forward. Now, I can't possibly do that movement on the block and pop that back out. So see where it takes you. It's depending on how high do you need to sit. What's your range of movement in your hips and the back? You might come to a place where you feel the movement could continue, or you come to a place where you notice, no, I want to stay here quite steady. So please make your choice, whichever one is yours. Both are beneficial. One is allowing a bit more movement into the fascia, and with the hold in the steadiness, we might get a little bit deeper down into the muscles, although both variations will work for it. Allowing outbursts to lengthen if that is good for you. And maybe beginning to gently engage the lower abdominals when exhaling to deepen. Never matters where we are at in the moment. It only counts that you show up for yourself and take care of yourself. So wherever you are right now, you could bring the hands in and just simply sit up, or you could start to sway again and again, stimulating the inside of the legs, but only in reverse now as you find your way back to a seated pose. If you like practicing with the block, you can have the block by the side. I will give options for it, so please place it by the side of the mat. We'll bring our legs together. You can help with the hands, or you can slide the legs together like myself. With your legs extended over the mat, have a look back and make sure that there's plenty of space for you to lie down. Then lean your hands down directly behind the buttocks and squeeze the fingers underneath your bottom. With your legs together, pointing the toes and starting to lean back onto the forearms. Now, if you know you don't want to do the fish unsupported, you can place the block lengthwise down onto the mat and align it where the lower ribs are and lean over the block. If you're with me on the forearms will land down. You will all look forward towards the toes to begin with, no matter block or arms. And we will aim to keep a lift in the heart. If your neck is okay, again, take the chin upwards and then guide the head deliberately all the way back. Keeping a lift of the heart is the posture, whether that's supported by a block or a free Matsyasana fish pose. You might imagine in the next couple of breaths that your breath flows just seemingly like water over the front of the body of this fish. To release, you might either tuck the chin and remove your block, or if you're on the forearms, Let the elbows spread, lower the back of the head down and releasing your arms. Taking a moment in an extended pose to observe extensions and compressions that you might notice in the body. Then stepping your feet down onto the mat, changing slightly the positioning of the pelvis into more comfort and giving your right knee a squeeze into the chest. You might like to extend your left leg out. Give your knee a good squeeze in. And on the next out breath, could you lift your nose to the knee? Then releasing your upper body back down, placing your left hand to your right kneecap. Let the right arm come out, cactus or extended, and guide your knee across the body when an out breath comes, but only to the point that both shoulders can remain on the mat. If you did bring a block or a cushion, and if your knee doesn't quite touch the ground, you might support the knee with a block. Your neck allows you, you could even roll the head to either side, your choice. Then coming to roll onto the back. The right foot is stepped down onto the ground and your left knee comes into the chest. Give that a good squeeze in. You might like to extend your right leg out. Keeping your left knee hugged in towards the chest, and an option on the next out breath to raise your nose up to the knee. Releasing your upper body back down. It's the right hand touching the kneecap and the left arm falling to the side, extended or cactus. And as you exhale, guiding your left knee across the body. The same here, if you're using measures of support, you could pop that block underneath the knee and opening the chest a little bit more, so change of perspective. And you might allow yourself to turn the head again. Surrendering to a light twist. Then rolling gently onto the back, as you might have just this moment to step the feet down, centering your pelvis. Maybe have any wiggles, adjustments that you could have for a relaxation. If you have bolsters, rolled up blankets, they might go underneath the knees. There could be a cushioning underneath the head. You could also choose to extend your legs out long, and in that case, let the feet roll out. Arms extended, just a little bit away from the body, so out of touch. If closing the eyes isn't what you enjoy, keep them open. Look up to a steady gaze point. As you find the stillness of Shavasana, returning in the mind to the idea that you brought to your practice at the beginning, that you were holding in the bowl of your hands, that you were offering to the universe. Trust and surrender, as you might choose to relax here, is one of the Yoga Sutras, our guidelines for daily living. And the translation could sound like, humble yourself to the intelligence of life and allow it to guide you. humble yourself to the intelligence of life and allow it to guide you. This comes from Yoga Sutra 2.32. And the Indian mystic Krishnamurti said, "This is my secret. I don't mind what happens. When you are unattached to outcomes, when you don't impose your prescription onto the world, when you allow life to be as it is, suffering dissipates. Suffering comes from arguing with reality. It is a form of resistance that creates an experience of psychological pain. When things don't go as planned, surrender your idea of how things were supposed to be. Instead, trust that all is as it should be, even if you don't yet understand how. In this trust, suffering dissolves and inner peace emerges in its place. This calm is the fruit of the belief that what is meant to be. So acceptance, surrender, and trust are acts of humility. The ego is humbled by the realization that there is a greater power at work. For now, in the next few minutes, accept and surrender your path to the universe and that you were holding in your bowl at the beginning. Noticing how the mind might come up with interesting thoughts and return to the practice of surrender and acceptance. There was a card coming up, quite matching the theme again of today's practice, that of surrender. It comes from the Aboriginal Goddess Chakra Oracle, and the card is magical dreaming. It says here that dreaming is the path in which we travel during our journey in this and past lives. It is the dreaming in the Aboriginal culture that marks the tracks in which we travel from season to season, where we find food and attend ceremony. But over time, Mother Earth insists we make changes to our dreaming and presents us with drought, flood, and fire, and blocks the direction of our journey, and sometimes preventing us from moving forward. Same as the suffering we encounter. Like the changes in our ancient dreaming, we need to learn to adapt to what is happening, and if needed, change the direction of the path in which we are traveling. So it might be time to look closely to changing your dreaming and journey in an alternative direction. You might have been walking this well-worn track for too long and nothing changed. Nothing improved either. So maybe surrender and follow a new path. As you allow that to sink in, notice if it sits right with you, then you might action upon it. If you feel resistance, be with resistance until it dissolves. For now, you might like to deepen your breathing. Maybe bring gentle movement back to your body or have a long stretch. And then turning yourself back into a seated position, maybe by rolling onto the side and spending a couple of breaths there. When you come to join me, you might like to sit comfortably with the spine tall. And if that's right for you, touching palms together once again in front of heart space. We'll complete our practice with one sound of Om, tapping back in with the universe, followed by 3 shantis for peace. Let's inhale for this Om together. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace in our hearts. We gently